started before people like John Smith come in and want to come and take all the money. Anyone know of anyone else that's coming that we should probably try and wait for? Any particular meetings that you know of that are just finishing up? Okay. Well, maybe we'll get started then. And definitely if you see people hovering out through the door, wave and tell them to come in. They won't interrupt us. But I'm Dave Button, the Vice President of Administration. And with me, my colleague, Tom Chase, Provost and Vice President Academic. Our goal today is to try and walk through a little bit of the budget. We'll try and make it really quick, so I'm going to intentionally try and rush through the slides to leave as much room as we can, or much time as we can for questions and things like that. I think that's more important. And I do recognize that a number of the folks here have had a chance to hear most of this presentation already anyway. Some of you would have had a chance to read the different media clips. Some of you might have even gone on the web, because we've had the entire comprehensive budget plan posted on the web now since Friday. So you may have read that, so we'll assume that some people have got some of it anyway. And these are some extra copies. We did have a presentation to a variety of different groups already on Friday. And so these are some extra handouts. Feel free to come and grab a hard copy if you'd like. If not, we'll put up if you want to get access to the budget plan, though, feel free to look on the website, and the website address will be up there at the end of the slideshow as well. So without getting started, just to give it a little bit of context and things, of course, people have heard an awful lot about budgets across the country over the past couple of years. Things have been tight. They've been challenged. You would have heard of other provinces where there's major cuts. And so this is a particular budget that we're extremely proud of. It makes investments in a number of our different key areas. It makes investments in academic and teaching areas. It makes investments in research. It makes investments in students, both in terms of student supports as well as students' scholarships and awards. So we're proud of the fact that we've able to come up with a balanced budget and the things that we've taken and invested in, which are the reason that we're here in the first place. Out of interest, I'm just wondering if there's any students here at all. Any students? It's too bad the students aren't here, because of course the main thing that we had in the back of our minds as we're preparing this budget is we're here for students. This is a budget that we think is all about students. So, a little bit of the context as well. First of all, this budget is a little bit different than other budgets that we've taken and prepared, which on budget day people know the end results of every aspect of the budget. They can then get on with the business of managing. This is a little bit different in that you may recall about 3.5 weeks or so ago, we announced a voluntary incentive program for retirement. I'll have a slide that will talk about that in a little bit. But until the people actually declare whether they're interested or not, we won't know that second aspect. We've got it built into the budget. I'll speak to that in a couple moments as well. But the actual impact on units and things like that, we'd have to admit that there is a second stage to this that will impact somewhat. So let me get started, and we'll bounce back and forth between Tom and I on a couple different things. So first of all, a little bit of just the simple I guess some fact checking in terms of what happened. We did get a grant increase, 2.07%. It's less than we had requested. So you may recall that throughout the year we were talking about some of the different budget challenges. The biggest place where we're feeling the impact is on sustaining capital. I'll talk about that a little bit later. It's got about half the purchasing power that we had just about 5 or 6 years ago. One simple measure to look at that gives us the challenges that we've had each of these past few years is that the operating grant increase is only $2.1 million. Yet if we looked at just how much salaries increase at this university in each year, it's 3.7. And so that's one of the key things. But we know that there's lots of different places that we need to take and invest in. A number of them, there's more, are listed on the slide. We know that there's been a series of years where it's been challenging, and it's that cumulative impact that makes budget making at the unit level in particular even that much more difficult. And we know, looking forward, every signal that we've got is that it's not necessarily going to be any easier next year or the year after that. So that one figure in the third bullet, in terms of the operating grant increase versus salaries, we need to be cognizant of that it's going to be a challenge going forward. So our response, this is what we're particularly proud of. This is our 20th annual balanced budget. There's no cuts to academic units. We're investing in the faculties themselves to the tune of $2.25 million, even more when we look at the entire academic enterprise. There are some cuts in administration. I'd suggest that they're modest, and we are eliminating the funding for 3 specific out-of-scope senior admin positions. And of course, how are we able to do it? Well, one small piece is the voluntary incentive program for retirement. Some other places are places where we've made strategic investments over the past couple of years that are really starting to reap dividends. So areas that we're investing in terms of recruitment and retention, and in particular in international areas, those are reaping significant investments to the tune of about $2.5 million additional dollars that really has helped balance the budget this year. So I'll let Tom talk about some of our investments.
Thanks, Dave. And I just want to begin too with some thanks to people in the room, including the deans, the associate vice presidents, and the various budget managers on campus who've worked very hard with us over the past couple of months to bring this 20th consecutive balanced budget into being in times, as Dave says, where many Canadian universities are actively cutting and struggling. So we are in this budget going to see 21 new, that is net new, academic positions across the university, and deans will have authority to fill 9 currently vacant academic positions. I'd add, it's not on the slide, but we're also now in the late stages of recruiting or assigning 17 faculty members across the operation for start dates of 1 July this year or 1 August this year. So tremendous amount of growth and renewal in the faculty. When you consider our total faculty complement at the university is about 500, this is a substantial number of new and replacement positions. On the request of the deans, we've established 4 new administrative positions in the faculties. 3 of those, for example, are in the Faculty of Nursing, which will see its final stage of 350 additional students come in this fall, bringing it to its full steady state enrollment of approximately 1,400 undergraduate students, and these administrative positions are designed to assist the faculty in teaching and doing the research for that now 4th largest faculty on campus. We heard loud and clear in consultations last year that there were pressing needs, particularly in 2 faculties around replacement of teaching equipment. I think many of you are aware, and I see Audrey back there, she's very aware that we've still got microscopes on campus that have stickers on them that say University of Saskatchewan, Regina campus. We're coming up to our 40th anniversary of independence on July the 1st, and we thought this is probably a good year to maybe start retiring a few of those stickers. So we're putting base budgeted, so that will be a recurring line item in the budget now going forward, $200,000 a year into equipment renewal in each of the Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science, and there are smaller amounts elsewhere on campus as well. $458,000 in increased base budget support for research, and I'll come back to that. There's a separate slide for that. We are putting up more money into UR International and into FGSR. Again, what we've heard very loudly and clearly in consultations this year is that it's not enough merely to bring international students in. We have to do more and better to support those students in their learning needs, in their needs in settling in to the campus culture, and so we're putting money into those areas to assist us to do that. We're putting a tremendous amount of additional money, and there will be a separate, some separate data on that in a few slides, but we have tried very hard to fulfill a commitment that was made in the strategic plan, the 2009 to 2014 plan, where he said very definitely one of the goals was to increase student support via scholarships, and we've done that, and there will be more on that later. We're adding 2 student counselors. Again, any of you who keep your eye on what's going on across the country realize that student mental health is an increasingly pressing issue on campuses. Queen's University, for example, which is not tremendously larger than we are, they're bigger, but not tremendously bigger than we are, has invested more than $1 million into student mental health because of a series of incidents on that campus. We have been very fortunate, but we have heard from John and his team that we need to do more, and therefore we are putting 2 additional student counselors in to help students who have pressing needs in their life on campus. I think you're probably aware too, if anybody keeps an eye on the news, IT security is becoming more and more an issue for organizations such as this. One of the American universities about 2 months ago had a major breach of its systems. Hackers got in and got into personnel records, payroll records, grade records, and so on. We have obviously a very large computing infrastructure here on which there is a lot of data, including the things that I've just mentioned, and we've got to make sure that it remains secure from hackers, and therefore we're putting an additional person into IT security to ensure that those data, including payroll, HR records, student grades, student information, remain secure and tightly kept. And finally, in communications, you will have seen over the past year and a half a number of us doing a lot of camera work. In the absence of an institutional spokesperson, we want to be able to do that more effectively with a person whose role is designated to take that function for the university and to allow that person to be well prepared, a professional, to present the university's position on issues and responses to issues as effectively as possible when sometimes we simply cannot because of the other demands of our jobs and our schedules. So that's in the budget. On research, again, one of the things we've heard loudly and clearly over the past year is we need to do more in the research enterprise. As you know, the Craig O'Kirk report has been out and in wide circulation. We've had a number of other looks at the research enterprise, and what we've tried to do is to begin to respond to some of those demands in the context of all of the other demands that face campus. So there are 5 new research-related positions in the base budget, and that is the director of ORIP, there is an industry officer, and there is a research facilitator. In the Office of Research, $100,000 reduction in what the VP Research needs to do in budgeted recoveries, in effect, frees up another $100,000 in his budget for direct support of research. We are topping up our share of the salaries of our 10 Canada Research Chairs. So the federal government pays some of those salaries, but not all, and we're topping up our support to their salaries to $386,000. We have $129,000 in one-time funding, including 2 research institutes. And again, the wonderful announcement yesterday, and if any of you have seen the Leader Post this morning, you've seen great coverage of Peter Levitt's Center in Biology, the Water Center, and the work that Peter and his now very large team are doing. Those centers are a crucial part of the research enterprise of the university. They're a crucial part of forming and carrying forward the reputation of this campus for fine research nationally and internationally. And Peter's just one example of the very many fine researchers we have on campus, and we're trying to support even better some of the work that's going on in those institutes with that money. Again, grad student support is very important. The issue of tuition is central to students, both undergraduate and graduate, and we've put another $206,000 into graduate scholarships, and as you see, a more modest amount into TAs. And finally, just a detail, for years, the Faculty of Science, and it's just a small detail in hundreds and hundreds of lines of that budget, for years the Faculty of Science has had to find money itself for institutional membership in the, Audrey, it's the Pacific Institute of Mathematical Science or Studies? Science, okay. So what we've done, since that's a recurring expense, we brought that in and covered it centrally. so that that now will not be on Audrey's ledger and not a burden annually to Audrey and her colleagues in science. Why are we doing that? Because the case is very well articulated by science that membership at roughly $35,000 returns far more in direct value to the university, and we can give you more details on that later.
Good. Tom spoke about some recurring items in science with the PIMS and things like that. This list is similar types of things across the campus, many of which are pure contractual obligations that we're required to fund and pay for, things like education and such. And so as those increase, and it's something that we're proud of to have you, our support teams and such, doing professional development, well, there's a cost to that. So these are all just increasing the budget support centrally for a variety of different things that help us do our core responsibilities. I'd be glad to, in the interest of time, I won't go into each one of them, but be glad to come back to them if there's questions around any one of them. Let me talk a little bit about the Voluntary Incentive Program for Retirement, because that's on a lot of people's minds. There was invitations out to 74 different people around the campus based on a simple formula of years of service and age totaling 85 or greater. This initiative was created to be able to take and do the investments that we thought were important in a variety of different, in particular, as you've seen, academic and research areas. So it's freed up $1.5 million. And the way that that works is in the simplest of ways. We anticipate a number of people that will leave. Those salaries will create a savings. We will invest half of that savings back into backfilling positions, and the other, and it's estimated at $1.5 million, has gone into investments in other areas that we've already spoken to. Now, we won't know exactly what positions until the individuals themselves declare by the end of this month, and after that, then we'll be taking and reviewing. We'll have the units. It'll start at the unit level, just like any other budget decision happens in terms of the unit identifying based on the activity levels, the impact of this budget announcement and decisions, where projections are going, and what the priorities are at the departmental level. They will then make submissions up through the normal budget process, through the faculties, the deans, the AVPs, to the VPs, and then ultimately to the budget committee. And we'll be seeking a variety of different input along the way to make the decisions about how we take and backfill them. We can talk about that in the question period as well.
So again, if you look across the country at what universities are doing with tuition, there's a variety of approaches. In some provinces, there remains a tuition freeze, which is then backfilled by the provincial government into the operating grant. We don't have a freeze in Saskatchewan. And what we try to do, again, hearing loud and clear from student organizations that tuition is an issue, obviously it's an issue, is to try to mitigate wherever we could tuition increases, which are at 3.8% for undergraduate and for graduate students. In the Levine School, that is the Graduate School of Business running things like the MBA, the EMBA, and the other degrees in that school, tuition goes up by 5%. And then, I know this will puzzle you, why only 3% in the Johnson-Shayama School? That's because the Johnson-Shayama School is a joint school of the University of Saskatchewan and the University of Regina, and we have to keep tuition aligned between the two schools for the programs, the MPA, the MPP, the PhD, and that's it, the joint programs in that school. We've made no changes to international differential rates, and our tuition rates, that is, tuition rates, the bottom line that everybody has to pay, including fees, at the University of Regina remain among the lowest in the country. This can be counted all kinds of ways, and again, we're happy to answer questions about this, but if you look at the actual bottom line total of tuition that has to be paid plus compulsory fees at the University of Regina, we are number 15 from the bottom of 57 English-speaking Canadian universities. Many universities report only tuition and don't include the compulsory fees. We have rolled most of our compulsory fees into tuition. and therefore the bottom line number that students here pay is 15th from the bottom of 57 Canadian universities. Financial assistance. We're putting up undergraduate financial assistance by $1 million, and much of that is, or a good part of that, is owing to the province's scholarship schemes, and I'm delighted to see a representative from the ministry here today. Graduate student scholarship budget goes up by $206,000. The TAs, as noted earlier, for the graduate students go up $25,000. And if you look down there, 2 years of provincial funding for what we call the SIOS program, distributed in the coming year, and that means another $1 million for undergraduates and $1 million for graduate students. So we believe that this is good news and healthy news in an otherwise fairly tight budget context for students at both undergraduate and graduate levels. Oh, just one graph. This is based on work done up at the University of Saskatchewan a few weeks ago, and we looked at numbers here and did an analysis. What that shows you, if you see the top, scholarships as percentage of tuition and compulsory fees among the comprehensives, and this is a couple of years old. These data are always a couple of years old for various reasons, good reasons, but look where we are. The University of Regina is at 35%. The proportion of total fees and tuition charged and then returned to students or given to students in scholarships and other forms of financial support. In that group of comprehensives, we're second from top. Only Memorial returns more to students than the University of Regina. And that's something that we are very proud of and will continue to work toward improving in successive budgets.
In addition to the base budget allocations, there's always requests for special projects and one-time funding. Here's a list of a number of different places that we've allocated money this year. In all cases, different key initiatives that really help advance and in particular help the core bottom line, and these reflect very closely with different academic initiatives as well. One place that we are challenged, as I mentioned early on, is in sustaining capital. We are glad to receive an increase from the province this year. It's a step in the right direction, but it's still a lot of catch-up from previous years. A couple different initiatives that we've taken to take some pressure off the sustaining capital is to move a variety of things from sustaining capital into operating. So Tom spoke earlier about the $200,000 each to the Faculty of Science and Faculty of Engineering as base budget funding that used to be, we used to try and find it and weren't successful for a number of years, so they just didn't get money. By moving it into base, it'll be there every year going forward, and it'll take some pressure off the sustaining capital. Other place that we are investing in there, you'll notice $45,000 for the Faculty of Fine Arts, $450,000 for information services to take care of the core central computer systems that we've got now, and to facilities management, some money, $100,000 for classroom furniture and such. The Evergreen project, which is the replacement of your desktop computers and monitors every 5 years, has now been base budget funded out of the operating budget, so it's taken some pressure off of sustaining capital. And this has enabled us to get a little bit more money into the bricks and mortar part of facilities. You'll notice that things are deteriorating faster than we would like. The number of roof leaks, the number of cracks and carpet problems and different things throughout the campus are just growing and growing. So it's a small bit. The $500,000 increase will barely keep up with inflation, but it's moving in the right direction. One last comment people tend to ask, so I figured to throw it out. There's no new money in the residents, or no new money in this budget for the residents, but the province has been extremely supportive. Lots of people have indicated that, wow, there's no money for the residents. Is that a sign at all? Well, just let me mention a couple of facts. We got this residence project approved faster than any other capital project, I think, in the history of this university. and typically faster than most projects are done. We got the approval and design money before even the first budget cycle of government. So it was even out of cycle that it was first approved. And then the first budget that then came after that, we got the $10 million plus money for daycares and things like that. So no, we didn't get any money this year. We're still working with them. The project will still carry on, and it will be open and ready for occupancy in September of 2015. We'll stop there and be glad to answer any questions on this aspect of the budget. We've focused on the operating budget and a little bit about capital, but in the comprehensive budget plan, there are also comments or budgets with respect to operating, research, fundraising, etc. We'd be glad to speak to any one of them.
Do we need a microphone to pick up the questions? Since this is being recorded, we'll get a microphone around to you so we can hear your questions.
Could you mention the homes for the 21 academic positions?
15 of them are in the Faculty of Nursing. I'm just going by memory. The others are in kinesiology, social work, engineering. 9 replacement positions. I think 8 of those, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 of those are in the Faculty of Arts. And let me just check. Yes, 2 in science, thank you. This is in addition to the ones currently underway, the 17 positions that are currently in recruitment or in some cases actually signed, with people coming in on the 1st of July or the 1st of August. So a very exciting time of faculty renewal. Thanks for that question.
Hello, I'm Sylvain. Thank you for this presentation. Can you talk a little bit about the 4 new academic administrative positions? Are they going to be out of scope? And also, you said that 3 out-of-scope positions were eliminated. But I think the institutional spokesperson you're talking about will be an out-of-scope position.
Okay, I'll comment on the faculty positions, and then Dave will comment on the administrative positions and the institutional spokesperson. The 4 new academic administrative positions are APT and QP. 3 of them are in the Faculty of Nursing to support growth, and the 4th is in the Faculty of Social Work as, I believe, a practicum coordinator who is in scope, not out of scope. And I'll give it to Dave now for the other ones.
Sure, I think the question was, where are the 3 positions being deleted, or the funding being deleted for them? One is the Vice President of External Relations. One is the Director of Counseling Services, which, as was noted in the slide, we're actually adding 2 more manager positions. So the 1 out-of-scope position would be deleted, and 1 manager, another counselor, 2 professional counselors to actually put more face-to-face time with students. And the 3rd one is the Special Projects Advisor for the VP Research and President in the President's Office. So that one's being deleted. The 1 position that's being added that would be out of scope is the institutional spokesperson.
One second, just wait for the microphone.
The new academic positions, are they tenure track, instructor, or a mix?
It's a mix, and the vast majority of them are tenure track, continuing positions, yeah. Depending on the need of the unit, 1 or 2 are lecturers, 1 or 2 instructors, and we have to be careful. We have a collective agreement provision to observe a cap on instructors that we need to be cognizant of, but the majority of them are tenure stream, what we call ASTP, assistant professors, who then progress through the ranks.
Sorry, I've got the mic. You mentioned that there will be over $200,000 added in graduate student scholarships. Will that be coming directly to the faculties?
I don't know that. Do we know that?
No, I don't know that specifically. I think typically we have that handled through the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research, but I'm guessing here. Brian's nodding his head, so he knows.
So we have to apply for it? So do we have to apply for it, or is it going, so where is it going?
Yeah, FGSR would administer it. It's a top-up of allocations for scholarships that already exist. So, well, not already exist, but the process already exists. So there's just more money to do more of what we're doing now. And so whatever processes are in place, the dean's got some more money. And there's one in the far back corner. Next, after this one, sir, now that you're there.
Thank you. Maybe I'll combine two questions. Well, maybe not into one, but so it's about the incentive retirement program. The success rate back in '97 was about 1/3. So how much of a success rate have you budgeted at this point? And the second question is, there's a one-time research funding of $129,000 for enhanced measurement of research outputs. Can you explain to me what that is?
Sure, I'll answer the first one, then I'll pass it to Tom for the second one. It is a little bit of an art and a science to try and determine how many people will accept the offer of voluntary retirement. It's always a mixture of what the economic environment is, what the offer is, and such. Our planning assumed, and the 1.5 million that we've built into the base assumes about 1/3 of the people will take it. And every indication we've got so far is that it'll be at least that. They're starting to filter in. But since it's a private decision, it's the kind of thing that we can't even sort of announce to other people in terms of who it is that's even been offered. You may have heard some people in your units talking about it. That's their personal decision. If they're talking about it openly with you, then that's fine, but we can't offer it to anyone else. But 1/3 was the target. I think that we'll surpass that.
On the question of the $129,000 one-time for bibliometric tool, one of the things that we're trying to do at the university is raise the research profile. And there are a number of ways of measuring research. One is, of course, inputs, such as grants and contracts gained. Other is outputs in the form of publications, patents, and so on. But an area that we're increasingly exploring, and we need better data on, is impact. Let me just speak to that for a moment. We have a couple of departments, actually more than a couple of departments, that are batting far above their weight nationally and internationally in terms of research impact. And Dave Malloy, who can't be with us this morning because he's at another meeting trying to generate additional research funding, is very eloquent on this subject. For example, the Department of Computer Science is, in national terms, much more prominent in its impact, in the number of times published work from that department, from colleagues here at Regina and CS, that published work is cited by other scholars throughout the world, gives us far more reach or impact than larger departments in Canada. Another area where that's true, I think, Chris, is biology, correct? Where biology, though it's not a large department when compared to the biology department at Guelph or Simon Fraser, is actually batting way above its weight in terms of the impact, the number of times that other scholars pick up that work and cite it. And we want, as we attempt to make each year the case to government for increased funding for research, one of the things we need is very good data to explain how that impact actually factors out. And that's why we're investing that $130,000, $129,000 one time in getting better data on our impact.
Just to clarify, that the $129K also includes a salary support for a couple of individuals in leadership positions in two of our centers and institutes. The bibliometric tool, I think it's about $29,000 for that, and it's actually a database that Professor Nick Carlton in psychology will use. He'll employ a graduate student to continue his research activities on this particular issue, developing measures and providing us with a lot more information about impact of our research, which is really quite astounding.
So the key thing is for us to say, nationally and to be able to say to our funders that we are doing, in many cases, much better than our sheer size would suggest, or the number of people, the number of publications, or the number of inputs. The research being done here is of such high quality that people throughout the country are sitting up and paying notice. And it's a really good story for the University of Regina.
I was just wondering, what was the increase for facilities management? Was it 100,000 or was it 500,000?
Both are right. There was $100,000 for classroom furniture, and there's another $500,000 for regular sustaining capital. Now, facilities management in the operating budget is taking a cut of about, I think it's about $119,000.
Okay, so the increase is going to be like capital money?
The 100,000 and the 500,000 is capital money, yes.
So we're losing off of the operating budget, but we're gaining in capital projects?
Yes.
It's a question about the Institut Français. Has the grant been secured? And if not, what would be the contingency plan for that?
I'm actually not sure of the status. I'm quite confident that the money will be coming. We've built it into the budget. It's been secure for the past number of years. It's a portion of the budget that we don't touch at all. It flows through as a direct grant. The university doesn't put their hands on it at all. It flows directly to the Institute.
I just wanted to say a few things, and that is thanks for the leadership out here that you've shown and your openness and transparency. And also, I was a student back here years ago, and I have many fond memories of my experiences as a student, and I believe that you folks are heading in the right direction and making the university a better place for students, and thanks for putting them first, because that's why we're all here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Well said. Thank you. Senator Millard.
Not that senator, though. Thank you very much. Apart from the spelling error on the last bullet there with migration, are there any plans to give greater presence to the internationalization at the university through the president's office? Quite often you'll see a VP international or academic international. My concern is with the absence of an AVP, external relations, that we have to give more presence on the fifth floor with respect to that for people from outside the province.
Thanks, Don, and thanks for pointing out that we're squandering M's there. We'll try to behave next time since it's a budget presentation. Look, I'll give you an honest answer. There is no appetite right now for additional senior administrative positions at this or any other university, so we're not going to do anything. We have an incredibly fine team doing international work, headed by a director, Livia Castellanos, and her team at UR International. There's just not the stomach or the budget to raise that to a vice presidential rank right now. And I think what you've seen over the past couple of years is that the president is assuming more and more of that role. She is in China right now. We were on email early this morning. She was meeting with alumni in, I think it was Jilan this morning, or whatever time it is in China. We have a very large alumni body in China, many of whom have come to occupy very important roles in Chinese government, and we're going to try to capitalize on that through the president's work as the chief external representative of the university. But the short answer to your question is right now no additional administrative positions in that area. We have put a small amount of additional money into actual APT and QP staff on the ground working with international students and working with visiting scholars, but that's it right now.
And thanks for the correction. That is supposed to be immigration, if you're wondering, immigration versus migration. There are very, very strict rules just recently enforced that we can't get around, and so we need to take and create, it's a one-time, but create that compliance reporting.
I have a follow-up question about the facilities management comment, in response you provided about the decrease in the operating budget, but increase in capital project spending. Is there not a concern here that the crumbling infrastructure that you're talking about is going to be made worse if there's less money going into the regular maintenance? Oh, my apologies. Regular maintenance, like we have a lot of new projects on the go. Are we undermining our capacity to maintain even in those? And also about the residents. You said that it's going to open, we're ahead of schedule. You requested a considerable amount of money in the request to the government. Not getting that money, how is that shortfall being made up? Is that fixed into the budget that we're seeing now?
Right, two different questions. I'll ask the first one, or answer the first one first. And the cuts, as you would have noticed on, I think, one of the opening slides, the fourth bullet down is where that I think it's around $119,000 quote of reduction in the operating budget for facilities. There's a reduction in the operating budget for virtually every administrative unit across the campus. And your comments about challenges and such in terms of operating to maintain facilities and to do registration and do administration and do finances and do HR, all of those things, this particular budget has made a modest cut to each one of those units to be able to take and invest in academic and research. Now, I can tell you, I have a pretty good knowledge, fairly intimate knowledge with every one of the administrative units. We've got extreme professionals in guiding each one of those units and the teams that work for them. And that's where I have the confidence that they'll be able to take and pull it off. It will be a big challenge. It, in many ways, is a bit of a sacrifice to be able to take and invest in other parts of the campus and to really focus on the core. But it doesn't come without challenge at all. So with respect to the residents, indeed, we work very closely with government. In terms of getting this project approved, we have every confidence that the money will be forthcoming. We've got we've got various levels of commitment and things like that, but you don't actually, they can't formally make commitments until the provincial budget comes out. And of course, we're almost a year away from next year's provincial budget, so we won't know for sure. But you can be assured that this is the kind of thing that the Board of Governors looks at closely and management looks at closely in terms of the what-ifs and things. And so the sky will not fall if it's not successful. We will continue to work hard. We've got commitments. We will hold government officials, well, as much as we can, hold them to their commitments, and the project will be successful. Again, it strikes back to the key role of what would this campus be without students, and to be able to provide the necessary supports to students. One of the most important things is shelter and affordable housing. And so that's a high priority for the government, and that's why they moved so quickly in the first instance. So it's not a negative sign that they haven't moved in this step. This step was not critical, and we still consider there's extreme support there.
Just pick up on one aspect of your question. I think I heard your question also included this. Is there any potential tax on the operating budget this year from the residence project? The answer to that is no. The business cases are done very carefully to keep those operations outside the operating budget. I'd simply add that the existing residences were done, the North and South Tower were done on a very similar plan back when they opened in 2004, and they're now several years ahead of plan. So they're doing very well, and we're confident that John and his team will be able to fill those new residences ahead of the very conservative plan that we put in place and that secured the funding and secured government and board approval.
It's unfortunate there are no students here, but with the 3.8% increase, that means an additional $3.75 million for the budget. Now, if you compare that with the increase from the government, it's almost, well, it's a little less than half. It seems that the weight of post-secondary education is falling more and more on the shoulders of the students. Do you fear that at one point there might be some resistance for the students to come to university? For example, one of the statistics I've read lately is that for the next semester, there's an expectation for about 72% female students. So it means only 28% will be male.
You've mentioned a number of very interesting things in there. Let me maybe just make an observation on the one number that you've pulled out of the budget, the $3.7 million in terms of increase coming from tuition. Only the smaller part of that, like less than half of that, is actually the tuition increase. Most of that is the enrollment increases that we've benefited from over the past 2 years, because we've actually caught up with respect to building into the budget the great experience we had last year. So $2.5 million is just enrollment and therefore the tuition, additional tuition that came from that, the revenue from that is part of that 3.7 million. So it's not, that entire 3.7 isn't new tuition charges to students.
Sylvain, the number across the campus operation, female students, is about 63%, though in some areas of campus, of course, it's much, much higher than that. Education, social work, psychology, areas like that, well above 80% female. And it is an interesting kind of public policy question. How do we ensure that we are encouraging young males to come to university, especially in a jurisdiction like Saskatchewan, where there's a lot of attractive employment opportunities for people coming directly out of high school. But the gender balance on campus is about 63-64% female currently. And in the workforce, it's just, I believe, above 50, just a hair above 50. The broader question is tuition. And what you're seeing across North America, I don't think there's a jurisdiction, except maybe Newfoundland, in which more and more of the costs of operating post-secondary institutes are being shifted to students and away from the operating grant, away from tax money. It's a pattern we see across the land and across North America. And it has implications for the way that we plan, the way that we are going to operate, and the way that we need to think through successive budgets, as well as how we think through the burden that is being placed on students coming into post-secondary. I would add that if I am a Saskatchewan high school leaver, if I'm graduating from Campbell or from Collège Mathieu or wherever it is, and I take advantage of the SOIS and the SAS programs, and I stay and live and work in this province and file an income tax return for 7 years, our calculation is that the net cost of my degree, I have to pay it all up front, the tuition has to be paid now, but if I stay and live and work for those 7 years and take advantage of the provincial scholarship programs, the net cost of my arts degree will be less than $400 after all of that scholarship support and tax credits are factored in. That doesn't blunt the sharp end of students having to pay tuition each term when they register and work for that tuition, but over the long term, this is a very inexpensive jurisdiction for at least the undergraduate students. It's a little bit more complicated on the graduate side, as we know. I hope that helps.
I'll follow up with a tuition question. You mentioned that the tuition rates at the University of Regina remain among the lowest in the country, but of course that doesn't take into consideration the student fees. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you're thinking about in addressing student fees, given that, you know, media reports have suggested that the cost of higher education in Saskatchewan is amongst the highest in the country.
Thanks for that question. And again, what you're seeing in the media reports, we would argue, is quite inaccurate. It's based on inaccurate Stats Canada data, and we're happy to sit down with you and talk you through that or show you through that in detail. Brian is an expert in that area. At the University of Regina, the great majority of the fees have been rolled into tuition. There are comparatively few additional fees. And our figure, I think we've got a table somewhere in the deck if we can find it. Our figure is the bottom line that students have to pay. So tuition plus the relatively few additional compulsory fees at the University of Regina rank as 15th from the bottom out of 57 English-speaking Canadian universities. What Stats Canada is failing to report is the much larger proportion of mandatory fees that other universities don't include in tuition. So they're counting, in effect, apples against oranges. Tuition only in some places. At Regina, most of the fees are already in the bottom line, in the tuition line. So I can simply say be careful what you read and be careful what media is reporting because the picture, we would argue, is not an accurate one from Stats Canada. Brian, is there anything you wanted to add on tuition?
Sure. Let me add something while Brian's thinking about it. Unfortunately, you can't read this chart, and that's why we didn't bother including it. Other people would have seen it in other places. But what this is a listing of the 57 Canadian institutions, or not Canadian, but English-speaking institutions. We, of course, are highlighted the 15th one there. We have moved recently to move all of our, almost all of our fees into tuition to be as transparent as possible. If you could read this, this column here is the ranking with respect to fees, and out of the 57, we rank 15th overall combined fees and tuition. We're the 4th lowest in the country with respect to fees itself. And if you could read it, the bottom two are 1 and 2, and that's, of course, their fees. They're private universities with huge fees that are 4 and 5 times higher than, tuition 4 and 5 times higher than ours, so they don't have to bother rolling in the fees. So if you look at it, if you look closely at it, we're almost the lowest university in the country with respect to fees because of our goal to move towards fully transparent. Brian, did you have something else to add?
Before I speak to that point, I did want to say, and join with you, please, in thanking Stephen for his running the microphone, and I mean running. He's got a workout today, so let's show our appreciation for Stephen for doing that. With respect to the Stats Can published numbers, what that number is the average undergraduate tuition fee paid by students by province. And when StatsCan talks about undergraduate, they include medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, all those high fee programs. And the average is higher in Saskatchewan than our rate by rate comparison because of the mix situation. They don't account for differences in enrollment mixes. Think, we have a vet college that serves 4 provinces. We have medicine, we have dentistry, we have the full range of all those programs. Only Ontario and Quebec have that, and Alberta, I guess now with a small vet college, have that full range of programs. And ours are predominantly larger. Our medical school on a million population, compare that to medical school in Nova Scotia, which serves the whole maritime region, about 3 times that, twice that population. So the high number that StatsCan comes up with is because we have so many more, proportionally, of those high fee paying students, which they label undergraduate, and which I'd call first professional, not undergraduate. It's not about fee rates, it's about mix of students.
Can I just add one thing too? Some of you in the room were present at the Liberal Arts Forum at which David Helfland, the president of Quest University, spoke. Quest is, again, a private in BC. I think tuition rates out there are somewhere around $25,000 a year. And I happened to meet him early the next morning. We had a conversation about this, and he helped me see this in a new way. He said, our tuition is no higher than UBC's. The difference is that the government of BC pays 60% of the tuition for UBC students, and they don't pay any for our students because we're a private. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because clearly we're all prepared to address these numbers, and I appreciate that. And I'm just curious how you're combating the perception that is put out there by the bad numbers from StatsCan, because that's what people hear, that's what people see, and students, you know, intake that, and then they think, well, why go to school here when I can pay less elsewhere, even if that is, bottom line, not true.
We're doing our best, and we would ask for your help in getting the message out. I know a forum we did last year for a student group, the reaction, we had numbers very similar to that. We made that case, and one of the students said, turn off your PowerPoint, we don't believe your numbers. Well, okay. We believe the numbers we're presenting are accurate ones, and the StatsCan numbers are, as Brian points out, fundamentally misleading because of tuition and fees, the whole question I discussed, and Brian's pointing out that a number of really expensive programs like medicine and dentistry are somehow counted by StatsCan as if they were undergraduate programs in arts or science. They're not, though the tuition fees are multiples. I think that's it. If there are any other questions you want to ask us individually, come on down. We'd be happy to stay and chat. Dave and I thank you all for coming out. And I want to repeat a word of thanks to, first of all, the budget managers who worked so closely with us to get this budget done. I want to thank everyone in the room, that is nearly everyone here, I believe, who works in various capacities for the University of Regina as faculty, as staff, as administrators, for the fantastic job they're doing. We've had an interesting year. I believe we have turned a corner, and we are really poised, I think, with this budget and what we see for the fall and beyond, for an exciting 5 years and beyond, and you're all a part of that. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, and I'd just add that the comprehensive budget plan is posted and things. That's the URL if you want to find it. There's another 3 or 4 hard copies here if you want hard copies, and otherwise, thank you to all of the same as well. Thank you very much.